gentlemen. That was incredible. What a way to start this wonderful, wonderful afternoon of celebration. We'll now go into the tribute portion of the afternoon and some wonderful tributes of people that were very close to Pheroze and people that have so many wonderful things to say about Pheroze. And we'll start that portion with Gobu Imanara, who will join us up on stage now to say a few words. If we could please give Gobu a big round of applause as he makes his way to the stage.
Good afternoon, comrades. I don't have strength to read. So I've requested my son to read for me.
Good afternoon. My name is Gobu Imanara. I'm an advocate. Pheroze was my senior. And more importantly, he was like a father to me and my brother growing up, and we'll be eternally grateful to Vilo and Pheroze for that. Thank you. A brother in the struggle, in commemoration of Pheroze Nowrojee, Senior Counsel, by Gobu Imanara. I do not mourn Pheroze Nowrojee as a colleague, though he was that. I mourn him as an elder brother in the struggle, a teacher, a mentor, and as a fellow traveler in the long, hard journey toward a just and democratic Kenya. His passing is not just personal. It feels like the slow closing of a chapter we began writing together and forged in defiance. Lit by principle and sustained by stubborn hope in this country's better self. There was a certain stillness about Pheroze. He did not speak to fill rooms. He spoke only when there was something worth saying. And when he did, his words always carried weight. Not the weight of grandstanding or spectacle, but the quieter authority of someone who knew deeply what he stood for and what he would never stand for. We first found each other not in a boardroom or courtroom, but on the front lines of dissent. The 1980s and the 1990s were not safe decades for people who believed in constitutionalism, but they were clarifying times. Those of us who dared speak against detention without trial, torture, censorship, and one-party rule were marked men. Pheroze never flinched. He stood firm in the face of that repression, not because he courted danger, but because his moral compass simply would not allow him to look away. There is a reason he was the advocate of choice for political prisoners. He defended the voiceless without a press conference, without fanfare. I saw him take on cases no one else would touch. I saw him sit with families in grief and rage and listen, truly listen, as though the whole system hadn't conspired to deafen itself to their pain. I saw him use the law not as a shield for the powerful, but as a sword for the powerless. Pheroze understood that the courtroom was never neutral ground, that to practice law in a country gripped by authoritarianism was in itself a political act, but he was not just a rebel without a file. With a file, he was a jurist of meticulous precision. He knew the Constitution, line by line. He understood precedent better than most judges. Above all, he understood justice, not as abstraction, but as a living thing that either uplifts the people or abandons them. When he published Practicing an Honorable Profession, it was a moment of quiet triumph. That book was not just reflection on law, it was a reckoning with history. In dedicating it to me, to my wife, Florence, and to our two sons, Marangu and Motuma, myself. In addition to his family, Pheroze gave us a gift that words fail to fully capture. The dedication was more than a gesture of friendship. It was an affirmation of solidarity forged through fire, and it said, we walked together, and we did not turn back. Florence and I received that dedication with full hearts. We remembered the detentions, the court battles, the whispered meetings, and the police raids. We remembered what it cost, not just for us, but our families. And in that moment, we felt seen. Pheroze had a rare kind of memory, one that honored just names, but sacrifices. He wrote often of those who had been erased from the nation's story. Mau Mau veterans denied dignity. Second liberation heroes detained and tortured. Ordinary citizens silenced by impunity. His writing was not performative nostalgia. It was political resurrection. He insisted that we remember because forgetting would be a second injustice. To the legal profession, let this be a moment of reflection. Pheroze practiced law with a discipline that is fast vanishing. He did not hustle for brief mentions on primetime news. He did not trade ethics for influence. He refused to water down his values even when it was inconvenient, even when it cost him. He believed that to stand before a judge was to be accountable, not just to the court, but to the people on whose behalf you speak. That is what it means to practice an honorable profession. To his family, I offer the deepest gratitude. You gave Kenya a lion of conscience. We know what it means to carry the quiet burden of sharing someone with the nation. We know the long nights, the public pressures, the silences. But you stood with him, and in doing so, you stood with all of us. As we lay him to rest, we are not burying a man, we are planting a legacy. His words, his example, his integrity will live on in our courts, our classrooms, our movements. Kenya is freer because Pheroze Nowrojee lived. Let us never forget it. Farewell, my brother. Yours was a life of honor, purpose, grace. Walk on in power. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Baranga and Gobu Imanara. Please give them a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I would now like to invite Martha Karua up to say a few words. A big round of applause, please.
Bilu and the family of the departed Pheroze Nowrojee, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to be able to say a few words this afternoon. Pheroze was first and foremost a dear friend. He was a father, a teacher, literally a teacher, having taught me trust accounts at the law school. A mentor, having mentored us through the corridors of justice. He was an extraordinary human being, a person with deep conviction about the rule of law, about fairness and justice. I remember when Pheroze found us at the corridors in the 90s, Imanara had been detained alongside Mohammed Ibrahim, now a judge of the Supreme Court, and Dr. John Khaminwa. We had looked for a precedent and we had filed a habeas corpus application. I was leading the young lawyers who were with me in the corridors. None of us had done such an application. We were lost, trembling, and waiting to be called in. Pheroze comes along and asks, "What do you have?" He knew why we were there. He looked at it and he said, "I will lead you." From there on, he became our teacher in those matters, and he has mentored so many since then. Pheroze kept his fidelity to the law to the end of days. He was the go-to person. There was a time in the 90s during the struggle when a judge wrongfully suspended me from practice after we had been convicted of contempt of court as council members of the Law Society. It is Pheroze who did an application in the Court of Appeal, then the highest court, for me to offset that wrongful injustice, which kept me out of practice for a month. Many, many other times I've gone back to Pheroze, and so have many, many people in problem. For him, practice was not about making money, it was about justice. The number of cases Pheroze handled, if it was about money, he would be one of the richest lawyers in town. But instead, he was the greatest pro bono lawyer I ever knew. In 2022, after the elections, he was not actively in court, but we went to him once again, asking him to come and lead our team. And he accepted, and he did so. But Pheroze was in court without being in court. I was, and I'm still, with the Law Society of Kenya in the abduction cases. Pheroze would call me with the research he had done, with submissions he had prepared. When I was not available, he would call a mutual friend, Lynn, to bring the documents to me. Eventually, I had to look for a young lawyer who would shuttle between me and him and rush materials to court. It's only after his passing that I'm telling my colleagues that research, those submissions, were from Pheroze. As I went to Uganda for Besige, Pheroze was drafting, he was advising. So he remained loyal and committed to the pursuit of justice beyond his appearance in courts. Pheroze was a friend of everyone. It didn't matter your social standing. And my heart is so warmed to see the social justice centers participating in this, because his last days, he didn't know, but something was urging him. Because I remember before he left for the US, he went to the social justice centers. He went to the museum in Mombasa and to this museum. He sat with me and drafted my evidence affidavit for my case, my reference in Arusha. And we were to meet in the United States in DC to complete the drafting of that affidavit. Instead, I received the news of his passing when I was in the US myself. So we thank God for the time we had with him. And I'll relay just one more thing. There was a dinner in their family home in Nairobi, just a week or 2 weeks before he went to the United States. That dinner was hosted by his family, Benaifa to be specific, and those of us who were present, we take it that it wasn't Benaifa's party, it was the farewell for Pheroze. We stayed late, a group of us remained in the house. We stayed late up to 1, laughing, discussing, talking many things about Kenya, the governance and issues that we need to correct, about the human rights movement, and generally having fun. He was at his best, witty, humorous, and we had a fun night. That's the last time I would see him. I consider myself very lucky and honored to have been able to share both serious and light moments with him before he left. Pheroze was one of those human beings who come after a long time. But I am so glad that I see Pheroze in members of his family, not just the physical appearance, but the core traits of Pheroze are not gone. They are with us. We will remember him. Thank you, Vilu. Thank you, Benaifa, Sia, and Elchi. Thank you all, the family, for sharing him with us. Be comforted by the great legacy and rich legacy he has left behind. Pheroze, in his thoughts, will forever be with us. May he rest in peace.
Thank you so much, Martha Karua, ladies and gentlemen. As she rightly pointed out, he did spend a lot of time with the youth later in life, and it is evident in our next speakers from the Mathare and Githurai Social Justice Centers, Brian Mathenge, Jerry Mwangi, and Njoki Gashanja.
Long live the undying spirit of Pheroze Nowrojee, long live. Long live the undying spirit of Pheroze Nowrojee, long live. Thank you, comrades. Dear comrades and friends, I am Brian Mathenge from the Githurai Social Justice Center and the Social Justice Center Working Group. I will say that without doubt, Pheroze Nowrojee has been one of the most inspiring elder comrade that we have had in the course of our struggle. I am so humbled and honored to stand here in this podium because, as proudly as I am, to stand on the shoulders of my comrade Pheroze Nowrojee. It is also without doubt that his contributions are deeply engraved in the footprints of our political practice. And it is in these times of political distress that we say silence is betrayal. And as Pheroze Nowrojee urged, we cannot afford to be silent. We cannot afford to be muzzled. As I finish, I would say that Pheroze Nowrojee kept insisting that for the young people, he has not only left a challenge. He has not only left a challenge. He has left a path. He has left a guide for us to follow. So it's not only a challenge; it's a gap. Fast forward is if he has been extinguished, then there arise 1,000 beacons from the spark that is Bo. So I will also invite my comrade Jerry Mwangi, who will give us the tribute as Njoki makes the conclusion. Thanks.
Thank you. Viva comrades, viva! Viva, viva comrades, viva! Viva! Long live the spirit of Comrade Pheroze, long live! Long live! We are very privileged, together with my comrades, to stand before you. My name is Jerry Mwangi from Mathare Social Justice Center and the Organic Intellectuals Network. I'm here with my comrades from the Social Justice Movement, Nairobi chapter. They can wave. Yeah, and we're really happy to be here because, as Comrade Mother said, on his last days, Comrade Pheroze did spend a lot of time with us. And spending time with us meant he left a lot of wisdom with us. Pheroze was a wise man, and also most of you might say he was also a serious man because you met him in the corridors of justice, the courtrooms. But us, we met him when he was this funny, nice, gentle mentor that we will all miss and live with. In his last memories, we spent a lot of time in Mathare. He took time to come to Mathare, and we could see how much this guy loved social justice. He could share his interactions with former unionists who had gone before us, like Bildad Kagia. He could share his experiences with other legal counsels who are here, who had experienced the 90s, and he could not allow us to witness what had happened in the 90s, because he was saying right now the young people have a constitution which they can stand in and do a lot of things. So while standing here, one of the things that we, as the young people and the comrades from the social justice movement, pledge that we will not stand maovu yakiendelea, as our comrades from the Field Marshal Band have said. We will stand strong, we will fight together with the rest of the young people in this country. We will fight together with the Gen Zs of this country, and we will not relent, and we will not betray. As one of his favorite quotes by Wamboi Kagia, I'll read it. It says, "Let us not only remember our heroes, it is also important to remember those who betrayed us." And in this room, comrades, we are calling unto everyone loudly, let us not remember our heroes. But now, with the Gen Z movement, we will also, as Pheroze said, it is very important that we also remember the people who are betraying the struggle of the young people of this country. And if Pheroze was here today, one of the things that he could say, that this is not a Gen Z struggle. It is the struggle for the country, for our beloved country. It is the struggle for us all. So it is important that we unite in all fronts. We saw him being in solidarity with all the people, being in solidarity with the farmers, being in solidarity with the unionists. We saw him even in his, with Bilal's last days. He was together with him in Wamboi. We saw him in the courtrooms and also just guiding the young lawyers. So for comrades who are here, it's time, whether old or young, that we unite so that we can fight this cause together on behalf of our great country. We are also calling on everyone who's here to continue the memorization campaign that is ongoing. Pheroze, as Mother said, these are the people who have been killed by this regime. And you must make sure you memorize them in every county in this country. So, comrades, we are calling you today to join us memorize the martyrs, the young martyrs who have led the way and have paid a price on behalf of this country. We want you to remember Rex Masai. Please don't forget him. Don't forget the 62 comrades who were killed last year. Don't forget the 31 comrades who were killed on Sabasaba. One of the other things that we will want for everyone here is everywhere you are, don't stop organizing. Don't stop organizing. You're doing this for yourself, you're doing this for your kids, you're doing this for the grandkids who will come after us. So let's do this in honor of Pheroze, and let's honor his memory. Pheroze lives in all of us. Viva, comrades, viva! Viva. Long live Pheroze Nowrojee, long live! Long live!
Viva, comrades, viva! Viva, viva comrades, viva! More power to the people, more power! More power to the people, more power! Down with injustice, down! Down with extrajudicial killings, down! Forward with justice, forward! My name is Njoki Gashanja. I convene Githurai Social Justice Center, and I am also a student at KSL, pursuing advocate training, under the advocate training program. Pheroze was a friend, a comrade, and a mentor. And before I read something small that we wrote here, I think the one thing that kept going through my mind as I sat on that seat is that this speaks of the character of Pheroze, because people from Githurai and Mathare are here speaking about the man he was. So that is an honor. I will read. Today, as we gather in memory of Pheroze, we are united by the profound sense of loss and the enduring light of his legacy. Pheroze was more than a friend and comrade. He was a gentle giant whose laughter, wisdom, and unwavering commitment to justice left an imprint far deeper than time should allow. Pheroze held our hands, not just in moments of triumph, but in times of uncertainty, urging us to paint boldly on the canvas of life. His laughter, thunderous, genuine, and childlike, echoed with the weight of years spent fighting for justice, yet always carried a warmth that drew out the best in those around him. Even in his absence, we feel his hand guiding us gently, but firmly. He often reminded us that nothing is more powerful in history than the record. For Pheroze, being on record was not just a legal principle. It was a moral imperative. It meant bearing witness, ensuring that truth and justice endure, and leaving a foundation for future generations to build upon. In these turbulent times, we, the youth of this country, rise to claim our place in history. We take back our country, and his words ring truer than ever. We stand on the shoulders of giants like him, who fought not for fame, but for a dignified, egalitarian future for all. Pheroze's legacy is woven from threads of justice, accountability, and humility. He was a father figure to many of us, gentle yet resolute, whose counsel and intentional records remain a roadmap for those who continue the struggle. His life's work was never in vain. In his last days during his last visit to Kenya, he was very intentional about spending his time with us in our communities. We felt his urgency in passing the mantle. It's almost like he knew he was transitioning and needed to pass his wisdom one more time. We were either on long calls, emails, webinars, planning the next plan of action. Oh, the sting of death. Though his departure is still ungraspable, the mantle he has passed to us is clear. We are called to wear the robe of humility he left behind, to anchor justice in our hearts, and to confront the dragons of impunity and tyranny that now roam our streets with courage and truth. His spirit endures in every act of loyalty, every pursuit of justice, every show of solidarity, and every demand for accountability. Pheroze may have departed from our sight, but never from our hearts. The plans we made now wait for light, a light we will find as we carry forward his mantle, in truth and in loyalty. For the record, we shall keep the fight, both for ourselves and for those who come after us. Rest well, gentle father, dear friend and comrade. Your legacy is our guiding light. Till all are free, we keep the fight for our liberation. For the record, viva, comrades, viva! Viva! Thank you.
Thank you from the Navarre and Githurai Social Justice Centers, Brian Mathenge, Jerry Mwangi, and Joki Gashanja. As they have their photos taken, I can then make this announcement. License plate number KCA 848H. You're blocking some vehicles, so if that's your car, please move it as soon as you can. The tributes continue, and as we know, Pheroze wore many, many hats. One of those hats was that of a poet. So to recite one of Pheroze's poems, I'd like to now invite Abdul Nur Muhammad up to the stage. Please give him a big round of applause.
On Kenya by Pheroze Nowrojee. The field is not the currency of our land. A fence is not a border to our eye. Hedgerows are not limits. Nothing punctuates the might of this land. Cloud, the curve of the earth, waters moving away. These mark our ages, not by enclosure, but by the freeing of spirit, setting for us the measure of our lives.
Thank you very much, Abdul. A poem by Pheroze Nowrojee. If I could now invite George Kegoro up to the stage to do his tribute, and of course we can give George a round of applause as well.
Farid, I have come with books. I know I won't finish in the time we have, so just feel free to interrupt when my time is up. So I'm trying to speak about a 30-year relationship in 10 minutes, so that's really, really hard. I had heard of Pheroze as a law student. His writing is in the East Africa Law Journal at the Parklands campus where I studied. We didn't meet when he had stopped teaching by the time I joined university, but his writing was behind, very sharp, particularly his article with Rembe, which is a review of a book, the East Africa Administrative Law in East Africa. It is a must read. I first met Pheroze in earnest when I joined the Law Society. I worked at the Law Society as Deputy Secretary, then as Secretary for a cumulative 11 years. And I interacted very, very closely with Pheroze during the entire period, starting with when I joined, the Society was in the heart of bringing accountability for the Golden Back scandal, and Pheroze was lead counsel for the Society trying to deal with that, and I worked very closely with him on that. Later on, in the following year, 1996, a mega suit landed in our doors. A disgruntled member filed a suit trying to stop the Society from engaging, to restrict the Society to things that are germane to the practice of law. That suit got us really, really, really worried. We felt that that was a way finally for the political establishment to shut the Society and stop subscriptions from coming on. And the suit remained with us for the next 5 years. Pheroze was lead counsel with GBM Kariuki. I worked very, very closely with Pheroze defending that suit, and finally we got, and it was the sagacity in court where it was felt that the political establishment needed to be seen to have won something from that suit while not winning anything really. That is what ultimately, that is how the suit was settled. And what they got was, they lost the suit with no orders to costs. That is how Pheroze that is the argument that Pheroze presented before court. I don't have time to go into the drama of all the detailed preparations that we did with Pheroze and how I saw his work as an advocate, as a leader in practice. In 1999, Camau became the chair of the Law Society, and Pheroze and Camau and the likes of Kivuda Kibwana, who I know is in the room somewhere, they were, and others, they were very strongly involved in the NCC process, and Camau Kuria brought that relationship into the Law Society. So I was involved in managing the back end of that relationship. There are people like Cyprian Nyamwamu who are here, who were involved in, as a young man, involved in managing the front end of that relationship. And then in the year, that same year, 1999, Chief Justice Chesoni died. And he died in office. And the Council of the Law Society coincidentally had a courtesy call on the head of the public service, Richard Leakey, We walked across the short distance from Professional Center to Harambee House and did the courtesy call, and the council told him they want this, the next Chief Justice must have these qualities, must not have these qualities. Liki was a practical man. He said, instead of describing those qualities, give me names, give me the name of the person that you want to be that Chief Justice. We retreated back to our office and had a long meeting, defining criteria, but also trying to identify individuals. Wisely, the council decided that they would compile 2 lists. A list of who to appoint. The sole member of the list of who to appoint was Pheroze Nowrojee. That was the proposal by the Council of the Law Society in 1999. There was a longer list of who not to appoint. It was very long. It constituted a very large number of the senior judges that were in court at that time. A lot of, they have all retired, so we can safely talk about it. So President Moi was in the next room when we went to see Liki. Liki said, I will not guarantee that your choice will be honored. I will guarantee that there will be consideration of your views. So I hand-delivered the letter to Liki's office, and we felt very nice. The Commonwealth was having a conference in Malaysia. I boarded the plane. We went to Malaysia, where I met this long list of judges attending the same conference. While we were in Malaysia, news came through that a new Chief Justice had been appointed in Kenya from neither list. So that is how Pheroze Nowrojee missed out appointment as Chief Justice of Kenya. But Pheroze Nowrojee, we know that he was a choice later of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga as Chief Justice when the new constitution came into force. There was only one problem. By then, Pheroze Nowrojee was of age for appointment of Chief Justice. All this to make this point, that Pheroze has had the highest consideration of his professional colleagues all his life. They've thought well about him. To have always thought that he was deserving of serving in the highest offices in the land. As Secretary of the Law Society, I oversaw the establishment of what we call of annual awards. We will do those at the annual dinner and dance. They were very fancy things. I think they are still going on. So we started an award process for, we established a roll of honor. Patrick Hiege is somewhere in the room, I know. A young Patrick, oh yes, Justice Patrick Hiege, very, very instrumental in that process, writing up the things that went into that roll of honor. And then we awarded posthumously the Achru Ram Kapila and former Chief Justice Madan. The first living person that we put on the roll of honor of the Law Society was Pheroze Nowrojee. We did this at the carnival. I remember Vilu was there. We were, and let me say something about Vilu. A lot of you who are men who are married here, I think, you know how wives don't often test person, eh? No offense to the women here who are married. They don't think they landed on the brightest husband, but Vilu thought quite correctly she was Pheroze's greatest cheerleader. And I remember when Pheroze is reading his acceptance speech at the carnival, it was really, really nice. Those awards were very, very, they were very meaningful. Some of them were massive tears were shed because people felt seen for the things they had done with their lives, for the contributions they had made to society, and so on and so forth. Again, that was a nice time for us and how we thought about Pheroze. I'd been with him the previous year in Johannesburg when he accepted the Simmons Award that has been talked about here, and again cheered him on as he read his speech. My next interaction with Pheroze was...
Sorry, George, just about 2 minutes.
All right, yeah. Great, thank you very much. When we then going to the Golden Bag Commission, and we stayed there for more than a year, and I see all the lawyers that had many different, it was a very difficult place. I was a very young lawyer, involved in managing a chair, a larger-than-life personality. The one person I constantly went to for advice on how to manage my role was Pheroze Nowrojee. He was reasonable, he was grounded, he was fair, he was balanced. And then the last things I want to say is around my latest relationship with Pheroze. It seems we always try to find each other, to find something to do together. And the latest things we did together was talking about the issues that are confronting the country right now. I spent a lot of time with Cyprian Nyamwamu, who must be in the room somewhere. We spent a lot of time in his home talking about those things. And a week before he traveled, which was going to be his end, we met with him and Cyprian, and we agreed to form, that was his suggestion, to form the Kenya Veterans Council, which would be a group of elders, civil society leaders, that would sort of be the voice of reason that speaks to the issues of the country. And he said he was going to lead this and so on and so forth. And that was to be the last that I saw of Pheroze. I brought these books because I wanted to read passages that I can't now read. The last thing I want to say is the very last thing, I promise, is Pheroze's relationship with a group of young lawyers. These are lawyers who argued the losing petition in the presidential petition in the last elections. The Supreme Court not only dismissed the petition, but also came down very, very heavily on the parties, but specifically on junior lawyers who are mentioned by name, who are part of the side that Pheroze was involved with. Pheroze took that extremely seriously, and when all the dust had settled, Pheroze called the junior lawyers, only he did, called the junior lawyers, and they're in the room here. I've seen their hands up there. He called them to his house and just told them, let's have our own closure. It is so difficult for you to feel when you're so young, to feel so targeted, but it is okay. This is a learning curve. And one of the dedications in this book is to those young lawyers who he mentions by name. Pheroze did this away from all the limelight, because whatever else Pheroze was, he was such a decent human being. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Big round of applause. Bang on 10 minutes, George. Thank you so much. I'm hoping this is the last correlated thing I have to talk about, but someone's dropped their keys and I have them here, so you can find me on the stage when the next speaker comes up. And that next speaker is Dei Mmu, who will say a few words. Please give him a big round of applause.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Philu, Benaifa, and the rest of the family. Is this supposed to be sitting here? My relationship with Pheroze involved a lot of pranks, so I was not sure whether this was one of them. And I wasn't even sure why I was invited here when Bean made the suggestion. But I said I would come. I would come because if I died before Pheroze, it is very likely he would have spoken or written about my death. So I thought that at least finally I will have something I've beat Pheroze to. And I can write on my resume that, I did something, I beat him to writing and speaking at his funeral. And at least I can see him and not tell him, I look forward to, when I grow up, I want to be like you, because clearly I have a whole life ahead of me. But I think I also represent those of Pheroze's young friends from outside Kenya, because many have spoken about his Pan-African credentials. I really, really enjoyed my friendship, albeit very brief friendship with Pheroze, of the 80 how many years he lived, I don't know how many I can count, where we spent quite some time together. And I've been given a really impossible task. One of my motivations for coming here today was to try and beat my own record, because I've never spoken for 7 minutes. So I'm going to try this in honor of Phil, to speak for less than 7 minutes. And I can do that now because I already wrote and published my obituary. So I'm just going to summarize that and share some key lessons from his good habits, a little bit from his bad habits, Vilu. Because this African tradition of only singing praises at funerals, I'm sure the band will not agree that that is the only way to celebrate our heroes. So there were so many things I learned about Pheroze. I saw Yash and Jill in this room, and we had worked with Yash and Jill to create a program for young lawyers, a training program. And on our first 2 attempts, Jill will remember, we tried to get him to come and teach, because that's one thing he did incredibly well, and he couldn't make it. And on the 3rd attempt, he did make it, came to Arusha, almost left for dead after that. I remember getting a message from Bin saying he was on some ventilator. He still survived, and there are not many people who can be that strong during these COVID days. But he made it, and he struck us in the room, because he came in with his copious notes, and as somebody was peeping into the notes, they saw a Rivonia trial. And they texted me to say, "You're old man, are you sure we don't have any problems with amnesia? Because this is a training on East Africa constitutional law." Everybody thought maybe he really missed the mark there. Luckily, Vilu was there with him, so there's no way he could have missed the mark. And he went on this whole lecture about constitutional law in East Africa on the basis of the Rivonia trial, 1964 in South Africa. And for me, that was a hallmark of creativity and imagination. And it speaks to Pheroze's passion. And what I learned, and what I would really like to share with my fellow young and not so young colleagues, is one can be passionate without being reckless. And we saw that in Phil. He was extremely passionate. I'm not sure we can not call him reckless after the story from Uncle Big Phil with the scooter to Mombasa. It borders on some insanity, but he was a passionate man. I think this is, I don't think any of us can attest otherwise. We saw the passions through how we once invited him to Arusha in a meeting some of the people in this room are in with former heads of state and government. And getting him from DC to Arusha was such a complicated trip. I had literally called him to say, you know what, Phil, it's okay. you can stay behind. You can send a video or something, but he still boarded the plane and flew all the way just to give a lecture a few days and go back. But I'm sure so many of us in this room can give examples of moments when you really didn't expect Phil to come, but he would show up. And I think that's powerful in many ways. But never would you call him reckless because of his passion. At least those of us who met him too late in the day. Those ones who saw him while he was younger, you have every right to call him whatever you wish to. But also Phil taught us that hope is a more powerful force than rage. And right now we see a lot of anger in this country, but also in what used to be the global leader of democracy. People out on the streets angry about everything. But one thing that you could consistently hear from Pheroze, every time you had a sit down with him, he would explain all the miserable things going on around. But Pheroze would never conclude a conversation without suggesting what a pathway might look like. He was loyal, I think, to principle more than anybody.
And it's incredible how he stood out for so many years on the same principle. I once asked him why he took on the Hotea case, which was just referred to here. And I said, you're already tired, you'd done your part, you had no obligation whatsoever, to show up. And he said, no, if it is the last thing I had to do as a matter of principle, I will do it. The man was consistent at being consistent. I don't think you could ever doubt where Pheroze stood on anything. And I think that's a very powerful virtue to have for all of us, not just the young people in the room, the betrayers and others who have been called out. Pheroze was predictable in that sense. He was not like the kind of hair some of our politicians describe when they sit here, when they go the other way. You could tell where Pheroze stood on anything. And I think that's a very powerful virtue to have. Pheroze also taught me that there is strength in humility and integrity. It was not a sign of weakness. Because as some of you already have attested, he would never have to shout. He would beat you with his eloquence. And I know as young people, perhaps, power is demonstrated best with the tone of our voice. But I think we can pick a lesson from him. The man had such high integrity that even when he lied, he said the truth, as I'm sure Vilu would attest. Now, in my efforts to beat my own records, I'm going to wrap up now. I did pick a few lessons that I think we must take with us, especially the young people in the room. Because I always asked myself where Pheroze got the time. You send an email of 2 lines, he responds with an essay of 4 pages and 5 book recommendations. And you say, what the hell? When did he wake up to do all of this? And he really, maybe I picked some of that, having been forced to, that dinner that Martha referred to, I was one of those victims who left at 2 in the morning. And he insisted that he signs a copy of his book and hands it over to me. I said, why do you think I've never read the book? He said, no, you've never read the book I have signed. So now you will have a copy with you. Then when I started going into it, I realized this man comes from a long tradition of firemen and his uncle, his great-grand-uncle, motorboy, the kind of things they used to do. How on earth were they sleeping? Obviously, it's something in their genes, which I believe one of his children, at least the one I know best, picked up. I hope she's improved over time. But guys, make some time to sleep. This is one of Pheroze's habits that I hope we will not adapt. Make some time to sleep. Because where I come from, I come from your next door neighbors, which I cannot mention now because of how we've recently been treating you Kenyans. It used to be the country of Mwalimu, and I'm sure you would have taken offense from how some people here have turned Nkosi Sikelel into a strange musical. But, in Kiswahili we say when somebody doesn't sleep enough, they get something called msongo. I don't know how many of us know of this, And when you imbue too much msongo, you become a kawat. So I hope the young people in the room can avoid msongo by getting enough sleep. Please, it is good for your health. We are no longer on the same diets of physical activity that Phil used to be in. I see so many cases of mental health problems and all those kinds of things. It's a different age. Let's not try and beat him to that. That was his superpower. He couldn't sleep. We don't have to adopt it. Pheroze taught us that you don't have to be a wealthy capitalist to be generous. You couldn't call him a wealthy whatever, but he always had something to give. And I hope we all take from that. But as you do that, please also take care of yourself. It is called self-love, it's not called selfishness. You need to take care, as Marshall Gans likes to say, of yourself before you can care for others. So I really hope, especially for those of us maybe without families, because part of his story has been told, but you also have seen the incredible family around him, which allowed him to get a lot of things done. We don't all have that privilege, so I hope we are cognizant of that. And I really hope from here, it was beautiful to watch the ceremony at the court yesterday. But I hope we all find our own small means of celebrating Pheroze. I was hoping from George's submission that we would hear of a moot court in East Africa in his honor, a moot court on human rights law in East Africa, and I'm prepared to work with you on that one. Martha, you'd remember at the dinner, Pheroze kept talking about those young lawyers and wanting to take them out to dinner, to lunch, and I hope you will live up to that promise, and I will get Bin to pay for the lunch. I'll pay for the water. I was really hoping that we would hear from the court maybe a corridor or a library dedicated to Phil. We are yet to hear that, but I hope it will come. From the universities where he's taught, especially Nairobi. Since in Africa we have built a habit of granting honorary doctorates to quite a number of thieves who masquerade as politicians, I hope we can also consider honoring Pheroze in the same way. To my friends in the social justice centers, many of you are quite young, and according to population statistics, you're quite productive. So I hope we will hear a lot of babies named Pheroze Nowrojee in many of, and now that he's gone, you don't have to worry about your partners asking any questions. And you know, if you feel there's not enough space given the traditional name, since we're all Kikuyus, I hope you can adapt the wisdom from our cousins in Zimbabwe and Namibia and give them full sentence names so they can be, Githurai, George, whatever, plus Pheroze Nowrojee, right? So I leave that as a challenge to all of you. In Tanzania, we celebrate Pheroze because in 1999, and I'll finish, I promise I'll finish with this. In 1999, the leader of the opposition, way before Martha started going to Uganda, was tried for treason. A number of University of Dar es Salaam professors showed up to defend him. They were all threatened by their employer, who was threatened by our own dictators then. But they tend to be very benevolent in Tanzania, so you won't hear about this. The only person who then showed up to defend Maalim Seif Sharif Hamad was Pheroze Nowrojee. So in the hearts of many Zanzibaris, we hold him very dear. And at the end of the year, we will send this formal invitation, Bin and Vilu and the family. We will honor Phil in Zanzibar. We worked after the passing of Maalim Seif Sharif Hamad, a client of one of the senior lawyers I see in this room. We worked to establish a foundation in his honor, the Maalim Seif Sharif Hamad Foundation. And we've agreed in principle that in December, we will honor him in Zanzibar. So we'll invite you to that. Those of you who still don't mind a little bit of commotion with our immigration services, you're invited to Tanzania. Long live Pheroze.
Thank you very much, Des. Just another announcement, KDG 400S, a black Land Cruiser, you're blocking some cars, please do the necessary. And with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite up to the stage a big warm round of applause for Eric Wainaina.
Good afternoon. I guess I can say the first Nowrojee that I met was actually Vilu. And I say that name with trepidation because she was my class teacher in Standard 2. So you don't just go around calling your class teacher by her first name. But I had several sort of lives with the Nowrojees, and my second life was that my in-laws, the Hursts, were best friends with the Nowrojees as well. I also had a crush on Benaifa for the longest time. So I asked Vilu what song I should play, and she made a list. So I'll sing a couple of lines of a couple. Kwa uchungu na mateso, kwa vilio na huzuni, tulinyakuliwa uhuru na mashujaa wa Gen Z.
hawakushtushwa na risasi au kufungwa gerezani. Nia yao ukombozi, kuvunja pingu za ukoloni. Naishi na tumaini, najitolea daima Kenya. Hakika ya bendera ni uthabiti wangu, nyeusi ya wananchi na nyekundu ni ya damu, kijani ni ya ardhi, nyeupe ya amani. Daima mimi Mkenya, mwananchi mzalendo. Wajibu wetu ni kuishi kwa upendo, kutoka ziwa mpaka pwani, kaskazini na kusini. Naishi na tumaini, najitolea daima Kenya. Hakika ya bendera ni uthabiti wangu, nyeusi ya wananchi na nyekundu ni ya damu, kijani ni ya ardhi, nyeupe ya amani. Mwananchi mzalendo. Mzee alisema hakuna cha bure, wasema tukatasiri, hata how do you lead the march when it just rains on you? When those who finish are half, those who start, it rains on you. When no one believes in victory, it just rains on you. It rained on me, it'll rain on you. March on. When the banners are fallen torn, it just rains on you. And they haven't been used in so long, it rains on you. And no one knows the victory song, it rains on you. Rain on me, rain on you. March on.
rain on me, it rain on you, love.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Wainaina. Fantastic. Thank you, Eric. I'd now like to invite Nazimita up to the stage for his tribute. Please give him a round of applause.
Wow, emotions. I actually brought my doctor with me just in case. Got overcome with emotion. Thank you, Eric. We gather here today not only to mourn the passing of Pheroze Nowrojee, but to honor a man whose quiet dignity concealed a fierce passion for justice, yes, but equally for memory, identity, remembrance, and belonging. Much has rightly been said about his towering legal legacy, which you heard. But today I wish to speak about a lesser known but equally important passion in his life. His tireless work to document, preserve, and elevate the history of the Asian African community here in Kenya. It started in May 1997 here at the National Museums of Kenya, when Dr. Muhammad Izakia, who was then the Director General, addressed a public meeting. In his seminal speech, he dealt with the role of the National Museums of Kenya in the multi-ethnic and multicultural nature of Kenyan society. He focused in particular on the minority communities. Dr. Izakia identified, quote, the need to step out from the fear of censorship to open our museums to braver and a better researched history of all Kenyans, presented with greater imagination and a real regard for minorities. In particular, the Director General addressed the Asian African community. He said, almost 34 years after independence, our National Museum here has no part in its entire exhibitions focusing on any aspect of Asian history. He said this must be corrected. However, to achieve this, the preservation and presentation of Asian history in Kenya must be a critical concern to the Asian community itself. The question of the depth and breadth of your accomplishments in the social, economic, educational, and political developments of the past must play an important part in defining your status in the country. However, critical to this process should be the effort of the Asian community to preserve its history in this region and to create institutions for its interpretation and to insist its history as a rightful place in this country. And in my view, all Kenyans and non-Kenyans in this country will stand to benefit. End of quote. Pheroze took up this challenge as chairman of the Asian African Heritage Trust, and together with Dr. Sultan Somji and a group of dedicated volunteers from the community, some of them being here today, concentrated on two dominant themes pertaining to the Asian community in Kenya, namely settlement and identity. Pheroze articulated this well. He said, one of the best protections of the intangible concept of a community's identity is if it is self-determined. Defining and conserving is not an external event by others, whether state authorities or outside helpers. It is an active internalization by the community of itself, of its redefined or reasserted identity, and the shedding of the preceding labels imposed by tyranny, occupation, subordination, colonization, or other cultural domination. One part of this self-definition is its material manifestations, including exhibitions, books, artifacts, photographic records, archives, oral histories, or material culture that emerged within the community itself. This is what drew me to Pheroze and Sultan Somji. Subsequently, we inaugurated the first Asian African exhibition here at the National Museums of Kenya in February 2000 that was curated by Dr. Somji. It was expected to be taken down within 6 months. Due to overwhelming public demand, it continued at the National Museum for 5 years and was only closed down due to the rehabilitation and renovations at the National Museums funded by the European Union. I had the pleasure of continuing and promoting the work of the cultural preservation of the Asian African community under Pheroze's guidance, who had then become my mentor and teacher. We managed to produce various Asian African publications with the tremendous support of the Ford Foundation, including a bibliography of Asian African writings compiled by Gobu Nowrojee. The National Museums of Kenya gave us their total support. This included the Director Generals of the National Museums who followed Dr. Izakia, namely Dr. Abungu, Dr. Idle Farah, who is here, the current DG, Dr. Mary Gikungu, the past museum board chairs, Professor Jeffrey Ole Malloy, and Honorable, now Governor, who is here, Issa Timamy, and of course, the museum staff. The turning point for Pheroze and me and the Trust was the declaration by former President Kibaki in 2012, when the President said, in order to promote cross-cultural understanding in our country, I have authorized and supported the establishment of the Asian African Heritage Exhibition in a permanent, purpose-built exhibition hall here at the National Museums of Kenya. President said, this exhibition traces the history of the Asian community of the last 200 years and documents their role in nation building. This was a significant moment for the community, for it particularized and situated the Asian African community within the national context and within Kenyan history. The permanent gallery will now open this year with the outstanding support of the National Museum and generous material and financial resources from the Chandaria Foundation, Dr. Chandaria, the Desai Foundation, the Desai Memorial Foundation, the Asian Foundation, and various Asian African individual and corporate donors under the stewardship of Dr. Chandu Shet, who is here, and the gallery chairman, Hasu Devani. Dedicated and professional technical support has been provided by Jeff DeCock, Victor, his colleague, Dr. Kalandar Khan, and Zain Mohammed, and Edward Miller. Pheroze spent over a quarter of a century writing, collecting, debating, promoting, and publishing aspects of the community's memory, history, culture, heritage, and identity with imagination, clarity, and courage. He reminded me and all of us that it was possible to avoid negative ethnicity and the importance of fostering inclusivity in Kenya's multi-ethnic and pluralistic society. He was very emphatic and against locking communities into an us versus them mentality. Over the past several years, substantial progress has been made. We now have the new constitution that guarantees the promotion of national and cultural expression of the peoples of Kenya and recognizes culture as the foundation of the nation and as the cumulative civilization of the Kenyan people and nation. The recognition of Asian Africans as Kenya's 44th tribe gives further endorsement of the Asian Africans' full participation in the mosaic of Kenya, integrating them in all spheres of life, and even in terms of participation in government processes and state appointments. My biggest learning from Pheroze was that he embraced and championed Kenya as a shared space where diverse heritages strengthen national identity. He kept on saying to me and others, Asian African stories aren't peripheral, but central to Kenya's evolving canon. His texts and panels in the permanent gallery frame heritage as the living identity of Asian Africans. His meticulous research, his documentation, his elegant handwriting, all showcase historical, cultural, political, social stories, languages, arts, and their significant role in nation building. What did I learn myself from Pheroze? He was never ambivalent, never hesitant, never apologetic. He cringed when he was confronted with the notion of being a member of a minority or the other, which has contributed, quotation marks, to Kenya. He would always say, Alamin Kimathi did not contribute to Kenyan history. He is Kenyan history. So too the Asian African did not contribute to Kenyan history. He is Kenyan history. No Kenyan is a contributory. She or he is simply our history, simply Kenyan. To conclude, I was proud and humbled to have worked with him as his co-chair of the Asian African Heritage Trust. I saw in him a visionary, an academic par excellence, a passionate historian, and an eloquent citizen. His work affirmed and confirmed the fact that the Asian African template could be replicated by all communities in Kenya that have their histories, their culture, their heritage, and their identity. As a good example, the Baluchi exhibition at Fort Jesus was inspired and encouraged by Pheroze. The exhibition, which is there now, is modeled on the Asian African heritage experience. His legacy. When you visit the Asian African Heritage Gallery, when it opens later this year, and which he curated, you will see his creativity and imprint on every panel. His research and his erudition will inspire a new generation of historians, activists, and thought leaders. He taught me and those with whom he came into contact at the Trust that we are custodians of our history, memory, and ideals, which we may never touch, but must never lose. For it is these abstracts that make our new constitution breathe, our communities fair, and our futures possible. May his beloved soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nazim. Another round of applause for Nazim, ladies and gentlemen. We'd now like to invite up Josephine and George Camau to say a few words. Please give them a big round of applause.
very much. We are old, so we will make it. We'll make it. Have a seat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Wanjiro. He's Gachege, Camau, but the colonialists must win. Josephine and George Camau. Good afternoon. Oh, sorry. This is hard. And it's not legal, it's social, love, and everything else. I'm taking you to 1965, when George and I arrived from America after having studied there through the airlift associated with the late Tomboya, J.F. Kennedy. And we come to an independent Kenya, confused because when we left, we weren't free. But we came in with the spirit of the civil rights movement of the Americans of the 60s, the voice of Angela Davis, that of Malcolm X, and the mediator, Martin Luther King, were very much in us and driving us. And we soon met my best sister here, and my gone but forever here with us, brother Pheroze. We met at the Kenya High School. And allow me now to give my husband the right to greet you, because I don't want to dominate. You can.
Good afternoon, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. As my dear wife has said, I'm George Gachege Camau, and I have known the family of Mr. Nowrojee for a very long time, since we were young people, and we have grown together, closely together, as intimate friends. And they have been our supporters in every angle, wherever there is problem. So I wish to say thank you to Pheroze, to the departed Pheroze, Mrs. Nowrojee, Benaifa, and who?
And your rosebud is looking at you.
And my rosebud. I baptized her when she was born. I called her my rosebud because she was very beautiful as a baby.
Elchi is right there, and their families, and Elchi is right there.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. There is no story without a background, without a history. And oh, sorry. This one here. Okay. I guess I'm not really very vast with tech. Now I'll be fine. Upon return, I was posted at the Kenya High School, which was a school of the European girls. And my husband was posted at the ICDC, Industrial Commerce and Cooperation, whose mandate was to Africanize the Kenyan economy. My purpose was, since I was a graduate, I was sent there because it was not easy to deal with the Europeans who were not accepting us at the time. So when I got to Kenya High School, I found a dear lady here called Vilu. It's very hard to talk about Pheroze and not talk about Vilu. So for me, the key to this family, to my knowing all of us to be able to know Pheroze, was through my sister here. Vilu became my sister. I want to tell the audience that those years were the years when the Europeans were number 1, Indians number 2, Arabs number 4, and the Africans number 3, and the Africans number 4. So it was quite interesting when I took Pheroze and Vilu to the Africans, and they were hugging them. I think you have seen that hugging here continuing. In other words, the mission for those people has been to unite people, to give people dignity, to uplift the ones with no titles, to hug those who are actually not even huggable in the 60s. That is really what where I'm taking you at this moment. So we are at the Kenya High School with Vilu, and we have heads of the small departments who are all white, and they would be leaving to go home on leave. Home leave, that was called. One, Mrs. Hill, was teaching history, and I was also given to teach history, although they had wanted me to teach Kiswahili because I was black. And I knew Kiswahili, but I told them I didn't speak that language because I'm a Kikuyu, and not many Kikuyus spoke Kiswahili then. I hope you know this history. Anyway, when she had gone on leave, she had wanted me to teach the Minoan civilization. And I had not even heard about that Greek tribe. I asked my confidant here. I don't think she also had had anything to do with it. Anyway, what happened? She asked her class to draw a line across my notes because they were they were not in chronological order. That did not make me feel very good, and I was very much unlike Pheroze, who was not a fighter. I was so mad. I stayed the whole night up, asking George, because you knew the English language better than I did, how do I abuse this Mrs. Hill so that she can know that I'm really angry? He said, just tell her she had no manners. When I went to the staff room, which had 65 staff members, and very few, Vilu, myself, and another person were just the only really minority, so to speak. So when I went to speak to Mrs. Hill, I couldn't say you have no manners. I said, if I had a gun, I would kill you. That is not Pheroze, no, that's not Pheroze's language. That brought a stampede. And the reason why I'm telling you this is to see how then Pheroze moved in to help in this situation, which actually has cemented success to so many people here. So an assistant minister known as Kasakala, those of you who are old will remember her, she was assistant minister. She was sent to Kenya High School because there was a problem. That stipend of talking of guns in the middle of Mau Mau movement, which had just ended, was not taken very lightly. And at this time, the president, Jomo Kenyatta's children were students there. Oginga Odinga's child was their daughter. So this is power. And the member, the chairman of the board, the school board, is no other but Charles Jonjo. Those of you who remember those names. So it is a real place that is not supposed to have people talking the way I was talking. Kasakala came, and from the podium, that was very powerful, he dared tell the African staff there, don't you realize it's a privilege for you to be in this school? And because I was actually going to the school, to the Ministry of Education to report how the girls were being mistreated. Vilu and the late Terry Hurst, we were together, and actually we helped. Terry Hurst, for those of you who don't know, was a European. This is an Indian and an African, so we are together. Nobody is telling us to unite, but our thinking at the time is bringing us together because we are committed to justice. So Kasakala, when he said that, I just walked away. I was pregnant with a man here who is about 60 years old. And I just walked away from there. Somehow, Pheroze, in his wise head, he knew things were not okay. There was a suggestion that there was a criminal. I mean, that type of talk was so loose and was actually criminal. So he came and said, no, you have to leave this place. So he siphoned me from the campus. I don't remember where I went, but anyway, that's not important because we're not talking about it. And this is really what I remember about Phil, because you asked us to say something that sticks in our head when we think of what did he leave, what is his legacy. Pheroze contacted Katuguta, who was the member of parliament for Kikuyu. He also contacted Martin Shukuku, who was the chief whip at parliament, and he said there's a problem here. The schools that were privileged and only reserved for the Europeans were not treating the Africans well. They spent the whole night working carefully, slowly, with dignity and legally, and decided to introduce that whole thing to the parliament the whole day. The whole thing to the following day, not the whole day, the following day, excuse me. The parliamentarians were very angry, and they said, yeah, those people should leave. So through this work, hard work, dedication, the whole night not sleeping, and looking to do things in the right way, to seek justice to these children who had been taken there, Africans were taken there on bursaries, so that they could pave the way to Africanize their education. I don't know whether it ever happened, but that was the goal. So he worked very hard, and those headmistress, leavers, and others left. And that, to me, was credible for a man who did not know who he was fighting for. These economically disadvantaged girls, with their parents, who he didn't know, that was the legacy of the man whose life we are celebrating. Thank you. After that, we had my mother's plot that was being claimed by a relative of Jomo Kenyatta as the president, as a relative. And he tells me, don't worry, we will do this. He goes to Kiambu, and in quoting Pheroze's language, it was the most corrupt land office in the nation. So he told me, I don't want you anywhere near. I'll handle this. He went there, Kiambu, and to cut the whole story short, he was able to recover my mother, who was widowed, plot, single-handedly, not a penny that he ever asked for. And in such humility, I just want to say, to pass my condolences to my sister here, Vilu, my daughter Binaifa, my daughter Sia, and my son Elchi, and your families. I can see that you're there. You have a man who is beyond a man. He was almost in the same length as Jesus Christ, as far as I'm concerned. All of you Christians can say whatever you want, but people who talk a lot but have no actions to show, to me, they are not even Christians. This man single-handedly taught us the principles of love, the principles of humanity, the principles of gender. He didn't have to say anything. You saw it in his action. Talked very little, but he was true love. He knew truth. He knew goodness. And I just feel very privileged to have met him. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, my wife has taken my place in everything, but I still am very much alive. And she has defended me like you have seen today. In her hands, she held me. I am a little bit older than her. I'm 90, but that's nothing compared to many people who have lived 150 years. And they're still doing their work. I am a farmer right now, but I had very important jobs with the ICDC and many other government bodies that gave me the chance to travel all around the world, including Rome and the entire of the American continent. But I'm here to thank the family of Pheroze himself, the gone Pheroze, his wife, his daughters, and all. And thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very, very much. One thing I would like to say is we have a lesson from this family. This family do not know color. I lived in America where they talk of racism, where they talk of what laws they need to pass to make people live together. This family is the lesson for all of us. And I know somewhere Pheroze spirit is hovering over the Gen Zs, telling them, move on, keep focused, and value humanity. We are too materialistic in Kenya. I hope you guys are going to make that end, because that is who you are worshiping, and I'm worshiping together. A man who never made it big the way we Kenyans like to recognize. Thank you.
Another big round of applause for Josephine and George. Wow. Thank you so much. Please remember we are tweeting at Pheroze Legacy, hashtag celebrating Pheroze, and please put up some of Josephine's quotes on those tweets as well. Plate number KCN 457X. You are actually now blocking someone with a medical emergency, so please, please move your vehicle. That's KCN 457X. As we invite our next tribute onto the stage, please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Issa Timamy.
Good evening. You know, being last in the line of tributes makes my presentation much easier. Today here, we are talking about a legend. Pheroze was a legend. If I look here, the people who are here from different backgrounds, different stations in life, and we're all here to pay homage to a great man. I first met the late Pheroze in 1979 as a first-year law student at the University of Nairobi. He taught me constitutional law. After that, we kept in touch. But later on, as the chair of the National Museums here, he came to see me about the Asian African heritage. And I told him, you are preaching to the converted. The space you want, we shall avail that for you, because of the respect I had for this great man. It has been said here, he was really a lawyer who was doing a lot of work pro bono. I'm a beneficiary of that. In 2014, I was arrested on trumped-up charges of terrorism. And when I was brought to court in Mombasa, and I was pleasantly surprised to see my defense was being led by Pheroze Nowrojee. I had not even contacted him. Actually, the court was full of lawyers who came and were being led by none other but the late Pheroze Nowrojee. So there's a lot that we can talk about him. We became family friends. A lot of other cases relating to elections, which he was my lead lawyer. And you know, I must apologize, we used to come late at night to sit with him as we strategize about our case. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, members of the Nowrojee family, it is both an honor and a deeply personal moment for me to stand before you today as we celebrate the life and legacy of a towering figure in our nation's history, Senior Counsel Pheroze Nowrojee. I speak not only as a governor, but as a former student, mentee, and above all, a friend whose life was profoundly touched by this remarkable man. As I said, I first encountered Pheroze Nowrojee as a young law student in the University of Nairobi. He was my lecturer, firm yet gentle, scholarly yet accessible. In a lecture half full of eager minds, it was his humility, clarity of thought, and quiet strength that distinguished him. Even then, his presence was that of a man driven by a higher purpose, the pursuit of justice. Our paths intertwined beyond the classroom. Over the years, he became a mentor, a guide, and eventually a family friend. His counsel, often delivered in a calm and reflective tone, bore the weight of wisdom, shaped by years of service to country and conscience. His advice came without fanfare, that has been said a lot here, but with such conviction that you knew it was not just learned, it was lived. Pheroze was a soft-spoken man, but do not mistake that softness for weakness. Beneath that calm exterior was a fierce defender of human rights, a bold and uncompromising advocate for justice and constitutionalism. He stood in courtrooms not for personal glory, but for the soul of this nation. In the darkest periods of our democratic journey, when voices were silenced and rights trampled, Pheroze stood tall. His courage, anchored in principle, helped nurture the democratic freedoms we enjoy today. He belongs to a rare breed of lawyers who understood that the law is not just about rules, it is about people, about dignity, about freedom. His life's work was grounded in that understanding, and generations of legal minds in Kenya and beyond have been shaped by his example. Let us also recognize that we are not just mourning a man, we are celebrating a movement led by a man who believed that this country could always be better, more just, more compassionate, a man who never gave up on Kenya. Pheroze Nowrojee goes down in history not only as a senior counsel, but as a senior conscience of our nation. His life was a rare blend of intellect, integrity, and public duty. His legacy will outlive us all. To the family, Vilu, Benafe, Sia, and Elchi, please accept my deepest condolences. I share your grief, but I also share your immense pride in his legacy that he leaves behind. His life was a gift to all of us. He gave his mind to the law, his heart to justice, and his soul to Kenya. May you find comfort in knowing that he leaves behind not just a memory, but a movement. He leaves behind not just a family, but a nation that he helped shape. His name will forever be etched in our legal and moral history as a teacher, reformer, a mentor, and above all, a patriot. As we celebrate his life, let us commit ourselves to the values he embodied: humility, integrity, courage, and service. That is the highest tribute we can offer him. One thing that I would really miss is his heart-rending laughter. Really, as I sat here seeing his face looking down at us, that is all I could remember. So, fare thee well, learned friend. You have run your race with dignity. Kenya is better because you lived. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Issa. Thank you so much for that. Please give Issa another big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. As we now invite Dr. John Khaminwa up to the podium to say a few words, you can please give Dr. John Khaminwa a big round of applause as well.
Friends, may I say thank you very much for having assembled here, and I thank the organizer here for giving me an opportunity to say something. I've lost a friend, Pheroze Nowrojee. Pheroze Nowrojee was a close friend of mine. But before I go on, may I say that I would like to mention very respectfully that the judiciary of the Republic of Kenya has stand up in a big way. It demonstrates the love the judiciary had for Mr. Pheroze Nowrojee. I've been able to see former Chief Justice William Mutunga. I've also been able to see former Chief Justice Maraga. I've also been able to see Mr. Justice Kiage. And I've been able to see Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka and Eugene Wamalwa. This demonstrates the respect that the bar and the judiciary had for Mr. Pheroze Nowrojee. Now, an immediate question arises: what should we do? Here is a man whom we all acknowledge was brilliant. Here is a man whom we all acknowledge that he was generous, wise. What is it can we do as Kenyans for this man? There is a book he has written, The Legal Profession. I think it was edited by Professor Yash Guy and Professor Jill Guy. He brought this book to me at my home on 15th January 2015. And he directed my book. He said, Happy New Year, and he directed pages that I should look at. Page 33 to 58, and pages 38, I think, to 75. Those of you who do not have this book, I would respectfully recommend to you that you purchase this book. There is an article he has written in this book which shows clearly the history of this country, the legal history of this country, and the political kind of life that Kenya has had. Now, in this country, during the time I've been able to stay around, we have had people, may say, of Asian origin who have rendered very sterling services to this country. We had Chief Justice Madden. We had Chief Justice Coker. Recently, we have had Professor Yash Guy and Professor Jill Guy. We have had a number of other distinguished people like Justice Chanan Singh and etc. These are people of Asian origin. They came here, or their parents came here, and they have identified themselves fully with Kenya. They are Kenyans. What is it that we can do for them as a way forward? May I respectfully suggest that with our friend Pheroze who has died, why can't someone in the county government think of setting up or giving a street a name by Pheroze Nowrojee? I wish the governor, the county assembly would look into this. This will go to show that Kenya still has a chance when it comes to rule of law, when it comes to constitutionalism. There is another suggestion I would like again to make respectfully. The whole world is becoming a village. Race or the color of the skin no longer matters at all. We have individuals who have actually sacrificed their lives trying to make this country better. The Asian community has done so. We had even a great union man, I think it was Makan Singh and so on, who did a very good job. We have had, as I've told you, Professor Yash Guy. We have had Chief Justice Madden. We have had Chief Justice Coker. Is it not time now for those who are at the top in the politics of this country to consider having one or two cabinet ministers of Asian origin? Would that not be something? It would cost us nothing, but it will strengthen the system of Kenya. I have always been a person who talks quite a bit, and sometimes I say what I think I should say. If our friend Pheroze Nowrojee were to wake up and see what is going on, he would say, look, I was a prophet. I told you what would happen in Kenya. Indeed, if you look in the book that I've just shown you, if you'll excuse me to read what I have just seen in the book. That's page 52. Conclusion, all this can happen again. All this can happen again. In other words, what is going on in Kenya here Pheroze Nowrojee was prophetic. He knew that we were going to have problems. What problems had we had before? The problems that we had before included people being detained without trial. That was one problem. Right from the word go, right from the outset, when Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was in power, when Moi was in power, people were detained without trial in this country. If I may mention to you, I was detained twice. What crime had I done or committed? Because I was representing certain individuals whom the government did not want to see represented in the courts at all. Nothing else. Not surprising, recently I made a submission in the criminal court that the criminal law of this country has been abused immensely and continues to be abused. I've got friends of mine who are politicians, but I would like to say this. They may not be happy to hear what I'm going to say at all. This country has been most unfortunate. We have had a crop of politicians who are not, one cannot be proud of at all. Our politicians, majority of them, are second class. They do not deserve much respect at all. And no wonder that the young people, oh, they want me to go. Yeah, no wonder that you have the young people going through what they're going through. Now, I think one thing, as I've told you, let us find a way of bringing up a new political culture in the country. And it's my humble view that even now we can be able to do it. And that's why I'm suggesting that let us not have all cabinet secretaries as people who are black. Let us bring in white people. Bruce Mackenzie was a white man, and he was a cabinet minister. Let us bring in even Indians to the cabinet. We shall begin to change the culture of the politicians and what and so on, so that we do not have the same people ruling the country, the black people and so on. This is happening everywhere. Why should Kenya be different at all? I think there's a high time we started now looking at things in a different manner. Not to continue thinking that we should have people of our own race, we should have the people of our own tribe actually on the cabinet at all. Let us begin to change things in a different manner to see what way we can change the country and so on. Now to the youth, I would say this. What you are going through, you are not the only ones who went through at all. We went through problems. As I've just said to you, I was detained twice. I slept on a bare cement floor without blanket. I was isolated. I did not have anybody to talk to at all. And indeed, if in this lovely book of Professor Yash Guy and Jill Guy, I read to you one portion, which I think is necessary. Please bear with me. Let me talk. Among the lawyers detained was John Khaminwa. I was the first one to be detained. He was to be detained twice. Each time it was due to and in the course of his professional duties in defense of a client, and by reason of his insistence on upholding the rule of law. For this and his unhesitant struggle against injustice, Haverford University conferred upon him the honorary degree of Doctor of Laws. Among other lawyers detained were Willie Mutunga, who later became our Chief Justice, and he did a sterling job. He did very well. Beni Kacheje, Gobu Imanara, a very industrious professional journalist. He has made contribution as a journalist. Muhammad Ibrahim, now a justice of the Supreme Court of Kenya, a very brilliant chief judge. I think he's around here. Rumba Tunisia, Gibson Camau Kuria, a very brilliant lawyer, academically, an ex-graduate of Oxford University. Wanyiri Kegoro, Jean Maria Serone, Gupta Nana Thiongo, whom I had the privilege of working with, a very brilliant young man. He has had to die very early because of the treatment he received from the current establishment. Miruki Kariuki, a very brilliant lawyer who had to die early because of going through the detention, sleeping on the floor, and etc. Kiraitu Murungi, just escaping detention and going into exile. Gibson Camau Kuriatu was conferred with the honorary LLD by the Louis and Clark Law School. Defense lawyers who were charged with conduct liable to imprisonment include James Orengo, who is now an able governor, Gobu Imanara, who is now again going to practice editorial work, Jafet Shamala, who is now dead, a former permanent secretary of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Paul Mwite, a very brilliant lawyer, who is now has not retired, but is still practices law, Beatrice Nduta, Martha Karua, a very vigilant lady lawyer. She talked to you just now.
Sorry, I have to stop you there because of time. Sorry, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
I wish I could have time.
Just a couple of announcements to make regarding some vehicles. We do have a medical emergency, so please, the person who owns KCN 457X, you've blocked someone who is having a medical emergency. We also have KCA 848H. That car is also blocking people, but truthfully, the emergency is 457X, KCN 457X. Please move your car. You're blocking someone who has a medical emergency, so please do move it now. As we continue, and we are slowly coming to the end of this incredible celebration, I just want to thank you all once again, and I'm sorry if I'm rushing you off stage. It's not for a lack of respect or not wanting to hear what you have to say. We are on a time schedule, so please bear with me on that. I'd now like to invite Alamin Kimathi up to the podium to say a few words, and then we have a few more speakers after that, a few more tributes. Please give Alamin a big round of applause.
Friends and comrades, my comrade Gobu Imanara is here, and from where we come from, all men and the Gen Z generation that we call them the car, don't weep, don't cry in front of people. We cry indoors if we have to cry. But at times I do cry, and I'm gonna cry. Whenever I face this family down here, I weep. Today is my 64th birthday. It's my rebirth. I'm 64 years today and living because I've been backed by strong people who are in this audience. But the biggest support that I received, which I will continue to remember as long as I live, is the support of the Nowrojee family. All of them. Vilu, I tear when I see you. I remember when I saw you when I came back from prison. been the most instrumental person in my release and in my good life in prison, because I had some good stuff at times, was Dei Nowrojee. You've heard it said, probably you might forget, that the President of the Republic of Kenya 2 years ago stated publicly that he was behind my release from prison. I don't begrudge him the little role that he played then. Little compared to so many other people in this hall today. And he admitted that when he met President Museveni, Museveni told him, "We have released that man, and yours is a formality because there are other people who came before you." I want to acknowledge that a lot of spade work was done by Pheroze Nowrojee. In the Commonwealth Lawyers Association meeting in Hyderabad, India, of that year, 2011, Pheroze Nowrojee moved the conference to adopt a motion to press the Ugandan government to release me and any person who was wrongly incarcerated that year. It was a culmination of efforts by, again, Dei Nowrojee, Mugambi Kiai, and a lot of other people in the Open Society family. Juliana is here, I saw Juliana Ndolo. 3 days before I was released, Chief Justice Willie Mutunga, who is here today, met me in prison, came to prison to see me. But little did I know that he had done the rounds of the Ugandan justice system. He had met the Attorney General, he had met the Chief Justice, he had met everybody else. It was a matter of when do you release Alamin Kimathi, when finally William Ruto saw Museveni. I want to acknowledge that. I've known Pheroze Nowrojee for close to 40 years. And one thing that I need to say that we had in common, we used to discuss so much, which brought us together, which I'm doing right now. He was an expert, I think, outside, of the Mmu Research Center of Maina Kenyathi. I don't know of an authority on the Mmu than Pheroze Nowrojee. I met him at the Nyeri Sports Club in 1985 when I was in the company of Joseph Karimi. I was just a newspaper correspondent then. Well, Karimi was my news editor and he was researching the Mmu books that he wrote much later. That we can talk about another time. But what really struck me about Pheroze Nowrojee was when he told us to go to Bantu Lodge, current Bantu Lodge, and above it would find the Mmu caves, the cave that has the Mmu parliament, the Kenya parliament. Very little known of it. It was only later supported by the evidence of Karari Njama and Barnett in their book, Mmu from Within. Pheroze Nowrojee had narrated that to us. Lastly, Pheroze Nowrojee and the Gen Z, it's been stated here, and they've witnessed it, that he had a big passion for the young people, and would keep telling me, please work with these people. And when he found me having been hijacked and kind of, somebody played the card that because of that release, then I ought to give a hand back, and made me a strategist for their party in the coast and the Muslim Kenya. Pheroze Nowrojee asked me, do you feel so indebted that you have to use a little hate instead of love because yes, I was seriously angry with some of my colleagues or some of my comrades of yore who didn't work for me in Uganda, rather they worked against me, Kenyans, comrades from the ODM party. And I said, I really felt bad because everybody else came to put a word, but this gentleman didn't put it, and therefore I'm joining the campaign against him because of hard feelings. Pheroze told me, this is not the way to do it, Alamin. Don't let hate or bitterness lead you. And Prof, I came back to the ODM party after I had much bitterness with your boss then, because he came to Uganda and said, these people who had hit you hard should be fried in prison and stay forever. And yet you knew me. He had used my report to sign an MOU with us. So when Pheroze told me, please get out of this, don't hate him, love him, I listened. You can work so well by loving rather than hating. And from that, I adapted the position that my politics is politics of love, not hate, not bitterness. And that's a message that I would want to pass on to the Gen Z as we now want to hand over. I'm going back to Mount Kenya. Today was supposed to be a handover ceremony to the Gen Z by the Mau Mau led by General Karari Njama, which we have postponed not to clash with this ceremony, but we put it for Saturday, and we invite all of you to hand over, to go bless the Gen Z, the valiant Gen Z here, and the others working out there will be honored by the Mau Mau and my generation of fighters in Nyeri. And when we do that, we will have the memory of Pheroze Nowrojee, whom we would ask Karari Njama to declare a general. We will, for he is living a general. And this is the rebirth of the Mau Mau. I say this as a child of the Mau Mau because my father was Mau Mau, and that's why I'm in the Mau Mau. And that's the connection that I had with Pheroze Nowrojee. Thank you very much, everybody. Let's honor his family. Velu, thank you so much. You're wonderful people. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, and a big round of applause for Alamin Kimathi, ladies and gentlemen. Just a reminder that Pheroze's book, A Kenyan Journey, is on sale as you exit today, so please do pick up a copy because all the proceeds will go to awarding scholarships, so please do that as you leave today. I would now like to invite up Hurst to say a few words. Please give her a big round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. Josephine, who just spoke to you about Kenya High, was with Velu and my dad. This is a tribute from the Hurst family. Pheroze and our dad, Terry Hurst, were like brothers. Dad had passed on earlier in 2015. Our sister Modoni, who is a Down syndrome ambassador, was overheard telling someone, "We lost our family friend, and now our hearts are a little bit broken." According to my mother, Pheroze was known to avoid hospital visits, yet he showed up to visit his adopted brother, my dad, a few days before Terry's ascension. It was like they continued their tete-a-tete from where they left last time. When we heard the news, my sister Sheba said, "Dad has come running to welcome Pheroze, telling him, 'Thank God you have finally come. I've been waiting for you for so long.'" While Pheroze lived, we somehow felt the presence of my father, even though he was no longer with us, because of how close they were. They talked and talked every time they met, discussing history, the British, Kenya, art, books, people, class, great thinkers they admired, and lots more. They argued beautifully and often laughed heartily. We didn't really pay attention to them, but we would hear these snippets of conversation in between play and our own conversations as children. When my father was suffering from depression, he would see only Pheroze. Pheroze and Vilu were so wonderfully supportive in every possible way. When we were young, we thought of Pheroze collectively with his family. So it was the Nowrojees this or the Nowrojees that. As a child, I just thought of Pheroze as an uncle. I was more interested, of course, in playing with Sia and Elchi, who were close to my age. We spent so much time together when we were young that my sister Sheba thought they were our cousins. But we always felt from Pheroze also a spirit of justice and activism. I remember when Sia gave us stickers that said, "Free Mandela." Those stickers stayed stuck on my bedroom door decades after Mandela had been freed. Pheroze was incredibly good at creating awareness with his precise words and careful explanations. One could see Pheroze, Vilu, and the kids united in this activism and awareness. Many times when we visited the Nowrojees during the late 1980s and 90s, we would meet an activist or politician Pheroze was working with or assisting. It was often someone experiencing political persecution. He seemed fearless when he was fighting for justice. I often wondered about how he and Vilu were like that. Of course, he must have felt fear, but still, he did his work and with so much integrity. Pheroze was generous with himself in every way. Once, many years ago, I was at Mithai Wala restaurant with my dear friend Lucy Muli, about to eat some delicious bhajias. Pheroze happened to be eating there too. I introduced him to Lucy, and then Lucy and I went to eat our meal. On his way out, he recommended that another time we should try the biryani and left. After we finished, we found that he had paid our bill. Years later, Pheroze would speak at Lucy's book club, where young people had read and discussed his first short story collection, Dukawala and Other Stories, whose cover is adorned with my father's artwork. He later once again obliged when Lucy was keen to conduct a YouTube interview with him about Kenya and the evolution of an idea. He was a true teacher. Education was really important to Pheroze and Vilu and the whole family, right down to the grandchildren. Education was power. It closed the gap. I don't think we know how many people were supported one way or another in their education by the Nowrojees. Nothing to Pheroze was unimportant. I suppose this was a necessary skill to have as a lawyer. One's observations, say about a book or a character, meant something to Pheroze. Your personal story mattered. Whoever you were, you really felt you were needed in the picture. Without you, there might be a missing puzzle piece. And he engaged with ease with the entire tapestry of Kenyan society, from the most marginalized to those with powerful platforms. What a gift he had to make people feel important. Any friend of mine was instantly welcomed and made to feel part of the family, and people would often remark at the warmth of the reception. And so, when I introduced my dear husband, Edward, to Pheroze and Vilu, he was warmly welcomed as part of the family. He would later become his publisher. Pheroze left so much of himself in the books he wrote. What beautiful language, what meticulous detail, what feeling. These books are a tribute to the man. Please read them. Personal histories were important, he said. The sense I got was that for him, they were the fabric of a country. He also said that just because an idea was not written down does not mean it did not exist. He was always pleased when people wrote their story, so there was a record. When asked what he thought of when writing a story, he said, "Where is the hurt? Look for the hurt and write about that." Meaning, look for the pain where a person is suffering and tell that story. This told of his great compassion for the human being. It was remarkable that Pheroze, despite being in and out of hospital and having all sorts of scares, did so very much. It did not seem to matter if he was tired or unwell. He would meet with people, write, and give lectures. Knowing about his health, I was always surprised to see him thoroughly enjoy a beer or a Coke or a burger. He traveled a lot, but for a very busy man, he always had time to see you, to crack jokes, offer kind words. What zest for life, and what a gift he left us, showing through his amazing life ways in which we could live our own. Because of his boundless energy, Pheroze appeared to some of us to be somewhat immortal. He was perfectly representative of a certain generation, but it now seems like an end of an era. However, this extraordinary person leaves a legacy through much that is tangible, and also through Vilu, Benaifa, Sia, Elchi, and Pheroze's 5 grandchildren. His progeny, in their own way, have taken up his mantle, reflecting his passion for justice, human rights, equality, and knowledge, and his generous, generous spirit. We will miss you so very much, Pheroze. Mungu amweke Pheroze Nowrojee pahali pema peponi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. A big round of applause for Sarah, ladies and gentlemen. Our final tribute of the evening comes from Pheroze and Vilu's granddaughter. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Dr. Natalia Din-Kariuki.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your wonderful tributes, which I've loved hearing. So Pheroze was like a grandfather to me, as you've heard, and our families are very close. One of the main ways in which he and I connected was our shared love for books. You've heard a lot about his books this afternoon and evening. Lots of them have been kind of brandished on stage as props, which I really liked. So inevitably, when I was thinking about what I wanted to say today, I thought about all of the kind of frequent conversations that we had about books and about the many books that he published over the course of his life. Again, as you've heard, these range widely from publications on the law to poetry and short stories to explorations of important figures and episodes in Kenyan history, including his work on Pio Gama Pinto and his book on his own family's history, A Kenyan Journey, which I believe I heard is on sale today. He was also interested in material culture, and he co-authored a book with Vilu on Zanzibar plates. Although, as I'll say in a moment, Vilu was his collaborator on pretty much all of his books, as far as I can tell. In many ways, Pheroze's books are a reflection of his self. They tell us important things about him. One of these things, I think, is his insatiable curiosity. He was really curious about the world and never wanted to stop learning about it. He was a real Renaissance man and was cosmopolitan in his interests, being as knowledgeable about Shakespeare as he was about the history of East African railways. To me, this curiosity also speaks of a kind of intellectual humility. As knowledgeable as he already was, he never lost the sense that there was always more out there to know. He was a kind of eternal student. Pheroze's books tell us not just what he thought about, but how he thought about them. He had a real attention to detail, something that served him well in his work as a lawyer as well as in his work as a poet. And he had a talent for connecting these details, which sometimes seemed rather minor, to larger questions. Related to this, and I think the most important and something which chimes with so much of what has been said today, is that people were always at the center of his work. At the root of this insatiable curiosity that I've mentioned was a deep interest in and care for people. His contributions to all the different areas he worked in, law, poetry, history, the museum, were shaped by a desire to learn more about how other people live and think and feel. One of the best examples of this is his collection, Du Koala and Other Stories, which Shira mentioned just now, a collection of stories which examine the lives of characters in various East African settings. And when you read them, you can kind of tell the stories are clearly informed by his interest in important moments in East African history. So things like the emergency in Kenya or the expulsion of Asians from Uganda, for instance. What I find really interesting about these stories is that in them, these histories, these kind of historical settings are used quite subtly and never overshadow what is at the heart of them, which is a sense of empathy for the characters and their experiences. What Pheroze's books show, I think, is how important literature, very broadly conceived, can be for helping us to better understand our history, to empathize with others, and imagine the future. Reading, writing, and thinking weren't just things that Pheroze did, they were central to how he lived. He taught me, and I think so many of us, what it means to live a life of the mind. He pretty much always had a notebook on him. I think that came up in one of the earlier tributes as well. This kind of notebook he always had with him, which he would whip out when inspiration struck, and which he would scribble in very tiny, quite hard to read handwriting. I remember catching a glimpse of him at my university graduation and seeing him scribbling away. He later presented me with the poems that he had written in response to that graduation ceremony, which is lovely. And it occurs to me that these poems, which he'd often write in this kind of spontaneous fashion, are yet another example of his care and interest and respect for people, his interest in the lives of others and the moments that matter to them, but described from his own perspective. I also learned a great deal from the care with which he revised and edited his work. From what I can tell, he weighed every word, he sort of thought very carefully about every sentence until he got it just right. And his insistence on getting it right didn't come out of arrogance, but out of respect for his subject matter and for the kind of readers that he had in mind. He taught me that good work takes time and can't be rushed. That was a particularly heartening lesson for me when I was trying to finish my PhD, which took longer than I would have liked. And when Pheroze was editing, that generally meant that Vilu was editing too, working through reams of paper and multiple versions of a text until it was finished. I've many amazing memories with Pheroze, but some of the ones that stand out most in my mind are from a visit he made to London in the summer of 2023 as part of a larger European tour. Pheroze being Pheroze, this tour had to involve trips to local libraries and museums. While he was in London, he and I spent a day in the British Museum, followed by a day in the British Library. In the museum, we took our time working our way through the different exhibits, looking at items including things like a 19th century chair from Zanzibar, a 20th century coffee pot from Sudan, and the Benin bronzes, something we spent a particularly long time looking at and thinking about. My memory of the day makes me think about how, in addition to being the kind of intellectual powerhouse that we've heard so much about today, Pheroze also had a great sense of fun. He could be very silly. He loved to laugh and to make others laugh too. At the museum, he asked me at several points to take pictures of him as he stood next to various statues, imitating their poses and expressions with an uncanny accuracy. And once again, he had his trusty notebook in hand as always, and as we made our way through the museum, he would pause and note down the captions describing each of the objects that we passed. As you can imagine, that took quite a long time, as there are many objects in the British Museum. Finally, we had an aha moment and realized it would make much more sense and be a little bit quicker to take photos of the captions as we went along and for him to record them in his notebook in the evening. But the photos I have now are exactly why I'm able to tell you which of these objects we looked at. The next day, at the British Library, Pheroze wanted to consult some old newspapers, which he had to do by viewing them on a quite old and clunky computer. The librarian who showed him how to do this was utterly charmed by him. And we spent the whole day in the library, Pheroze alternating between charming the librarians and squinting at the screen to read the small newspaper print, of course, taking notes throughout. We sat and worked happily for hours, Pheroze showing me the interesting archival discoveries as he came across them. He would have stayed even longer past closing time, but even the charmed librarians, as charmed as they were, had to ask us to leave at some point, because the library needed to close. I'm so grateful to have had him in my life and to have learned from his wisdom, his silliness, and his curiosity for the world and everything in it. We will miss him, but we can hold on to these memories and to his books, including, I know, several books in progress, which I know that Vilu plans on completing. So let's watch this space for further books. Vilu, Bin, Sia, and Elchi, I know I speak for my whole family when I say we'll always be by your side. We love you very much. And just to end, may Pheroze rest in peace. We'll miss him. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another round of applause for Dr. Natalia Din-Kariuki. As we close off, we'd like to invite Joyce Nyairo to come up to the podium to recite a poem from the wonderful Maya Angelou. Please give her a big round of applause.
Pheroze writer who always showed up for other writers. At book launches, at literary events, at memorials, and also sending you comments, thoughtful comments on what you had written. Whether it was by email or in a phone call, Pheroze was always there for other writers. And I think because of that, it feels right to remember him today through the words of Maya Angelou and a poem that she wrote in 1984 after the death of James Baldwin, a fellow writer and an activist. The poem is titled, When Great Trees Fall. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grass. And even lions lumber after safety. When great trees fall, in the forest, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded by fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words said, unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink. Wizened, our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We're not so much maddened as reduced. Reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly, and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A wonderful recital from the lovely Maya Angelou. And just another big round of applause for all the tributes that came in tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone who spoke, incredible. And thank you all for joining us. But before we go, we'd just like to invite Benaifa up to give the closing remarks. Please give her a big round of applause.
Thank you all for your kindness, for coming, for staying, for sharing all of the experiences. In all the many, many ways you've supported us, small and big, not just with your presence here, but in so many other ways. I think what we've heard today, I felt like I had run through my whole life with all the people who I've had interactions with and all the love that I've received and that Pheroze and Vilu. And as you can see, there can be no Pheroze without Vilu. They were one and the same. She always complained, you kids, you always give your dad a free pass, you know, because I'm the one who has to be strict. I'm the one who makes you do your homework or practice the piano. But it's not true. You're a team, you're a partnership. Thank you all today for taking the time. You don't know how much strength and courage and support that gives us. When I heard the news that Pheroze had died, I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach very hard. And I felt nauseous for days. And all the tributes and cards and support, and even when I've not answered any of you, you've continued to check on us, to see how we are, to bring food, to take care of us. Thank you so much, and thank you for all that you've done to hold us in your hearts and your prayers. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
I think we can all stand up and give a big round of applause for Pheroze Nowrojee and his family, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you all for joining us. Please remember the books, The Kenyan Journey, are on sale. Proceeds will go to scholarships. Have a wonderful evening. Have a safe evening. Good evening.